Michael Schellenberger's book, he draws a connection between Paul Ehrlich, who had this doom and gloom prophecies about overpopulation, and the sort of climate change alarmism that we've come to see. And people like him, essentially, once the overpopulation theory didn't pan out, they then started to sort of drone on incessantly about how we're destroying the earth and creating all this sorts of calamitous consequences, and the earth is going to end in 10 years, and for some reason that clock keeps on repeating itself. Do you see any parallel between that gloom and doom stuff over the overpopulation?
The environmental concerns have changed a little bit. In the 1960s and 70s, it was human beings are going to be too numerous, they are going to consume resources, and the world will end. That has evolved into something slightly different, which is we have too many people consuming too much stuff, and the byproduct of that will be the destruction, environmental destruction of the planet. There will be too much pollution, too much trash, and so on and so forth. But what ties these two environmental theories together is that fundamentally they see human beings on average as a cost rather than as a benefit. They see human beings as a problem, as something that makes things worse. And what I am saying, and what I think Musk is saying, is that human beings are the solution. And we have resolved many more difficult problems than we are facing in the future. We have resolved smallpox and Ebola. We have a vaccine for Ebola. We have a vaccine for COVID. We have increased life expectancy. We have doubled life expectancy. We have resolved global food shortages. And at any rate, what does it even mean that, for example, we will not be able to cope with rising oceans? I mean, the Dutch are able to cope with living under the sea level and have done so for the last 300 years.
Really, like 30 feet under the sea, right, in the Netherlands?
Probably in some areas, but the point is that the Dutch have managed to dry Netherlands and to have a hyper-successful culture, economy, and society at the time when they were as poor as Bangladesh. Why can we not cope with the effects of climate change 100 years from now when we are going to be 6 times richer than we are today? It makes absolutely no sense, this warmongering. By the way, I'm not a climate denier. I want to make that absolutely clear. I do believe the world is warming. It's just that it's just another problem that we have to solve. And by the way, we know how to solve it because we know how to produce energy for every human being without producing CO2, and it's called nuclear. We've had that energy for the last 80 years. We can have sufficient energy, reliable energy, plentiful energy, cheap energy from nuclear reactors, which are now much safer than they used to be. So, and if we can build enough of those, climate change, well, the problem disappears because we are no longer spewing CO2 into the atmosphere. So we already know the solution, we just don't have the will to do anything about it.
And so the alarmists are also against nuclear, which is also important to point out, right?
Well, that's the ultimate, what's the word I'm looking for? That's the ultimate disappointment, and that's the ultimate puzzle. Is that when you present environmentalists with solutions to the problems which they themselves have identified as problems, they refuse those solutions. So it's like they cannot take yes for an answer. Typical example is flow of pesticides from fields into rivers and then into oceans. We need pesticides in order to feed humanity, but it has a side effect of polluting our rivers. Is there a solution? Yes, there is. What's the solution? It's genetically modified crops which do not need pesticides because the plants themselves protect themselves against insects. When you present this solution to a real problem, to an environmentalist, they say, absolutely not. Okay. We are running out of water, they say. We are not really, because we can always desalinate water. But let's say that we do. Well, we now have precision agriculture from Israel. We have plants that can be genetically modified in order to utilize less water. But because it's genetically modified, that's also a no-go area for the environmentalists. So you cannot win with them. It's a religion.
Yeah, I think that's a problem. We see it now with Germany running into issues because they shut down all their nuclear plants, and now with this whole
absolute insanity. Absolute insanity. In Britain, people are starting to burn wood because electricity is so expensive They are now reintroducing stoves and burning wooden logs in order to heat their homes. And of course, Germans are utterly hypocritical about it. They get their energy from Poland, which is burning brown coal. Not even the good coal, but the brown coal, which is incredibly bad for the environment. So the Germans can say, oh, we live in this country that is producing very little CO2. Yes, and where is your electricity coming from? I mean, it's not coming from unicorn tears. No, it's coming from Poland, which is burning coal.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely insane. I mean, there is just so much hypocrisy and insanity on this side of the political spectrum. It's beyond belief.